This first footage is recorded at around 1:30 a.m. on a Sunday and consists of dashcam video showing a car driving along a quiet, rural stretch of road. As the vehicle nears an intersection, a hooded man is visible standing in the middle of the roadway with his head lowered. When the car gets closer, the man appears to move forward, trying to step directly in front of it and causing the driver to come to a stop. At that point, the man can be heard screaming as he suddenly lunges toward the car, a reaction that would naturally prompt the driver to hit the accelerator and get away as quickly as possible. The driver states that after the incident, he desperately tried to call his wife to warn her, knowing she was driving on the same road, roughly a minute behind him. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to reach her in time, which resulted in his wife encountering the very same situation shortly afterward. Even now, the couple says they are still unsure whether the man's intentions were to rob them, steal their vehicles, or cause them harm in some other way. This dashcam video was recorded in Australia and shows two men driving along a highway in a Mercedes. Through their dashcam, another vehicle can be seen rapidly approaching from behind before suddenly swerving around them, pulling in front and slamming on its brakes in what appears to be an attempt to force them off the road. What might initially be dismissed as an extreme case of road rage quickly becomes far more serious and unsettling when the two men notice that the other driver is holding an axe, waving it out of the window and threatening them.
Oh, he's got an axe, dude. Like, what are you doing? Oh, keep distance, bro.
The sudden and frightening encounter causes the two men to make a quick U-turn in an attempt to get away from him, but the driver continues to chase them. The situation escalates even further when they take the next exit and head toward a nearby roundabout.
Whoa! Keep driving, holy! Bang, cool cops. Yeah. I'm just gonna ram us, bro. No. Yeah. Oh, keep going. Just keep. Oh my god!
The Mercedes is struck from behind twice, and the second impact causes the attacker's vehicle to spin out and crash off the road. This gives the two men the opportunity they need to escape. They drive straight to the nearest police station and report everything that had just occurred. When officers later respond to the crash site, the vehicle involved is no longer there. However, a few hours later, police locate the car on the road, and the driver is taken into custody. The owner of the dashcam later provided additional context, explaining that the man who chased them was completely convinced they had broken into his house the night before. This belief was entirely unfounded, as the two men had never seen or encountered him before. It was ultimately determined that the driver was under the influence of an unknown substance. He was charged with multiple offenses and sentenced to 2 years in prison. In this video, dashcam footage shows a vehicle sitting parked in the middle of the day in October of 2014. From the audio alone, it's obvious that someone is inside the car, as you can hear the window being rolled down and the driver commenting on how creepy something is. It quickly becomes clear what she's referring to when a man wearing a disturbing mask is seen walking around the vehicle. According to the driver, there were 5 other people wearing the same mask who were not visible on the dash cam. Despite the unsettling situation, the driver initially seems to think it's some kind of joke, and she can be heard laughing. That changes abruptly when the masked men smash one of the car's windows and begin stealing all of her valuables, while her terrified screams can be heard throughout the ordeal.
Consumers are facing during the decline in the U.S. economy. The Internal Revenue Service may
Those are so creepy.
settlement for consumers and back
Where'd you get it?
This may result in back taxes being reduced by thousands of dollars. An open phone line.
Where did you get them?
Come
here.
Consumers to call and see if you qualify for this.
What did you get?
Ensure your financial stability during this
How
decline.
much did you get of the car?
Take down this number now. 800-639-9690. That's 800-639-9690. If you owe back taxes to the IRS, there's no need to pay anymore. The IRS will not be accepting reduced settlements.
In April of 2021, a man named Mitch Kuhn was driving home from work on the highway when he witnessed something alarming. A small figure, appearing to be a child, wearing an oversized jacket or possibly wrapped in a blanket, suddenly began walking into the middle of the highway, narrowly avoiding being hit by Mitch's truck. At the time, Mitch was towing a trailer and felt that stopping suddenly could have caused a serious accident, so instead he chose to call the police to report what appeared to be an unattended child wandering along the roadway. Police assured Mitch that patrol units would be dispatched right away. About an hour later, he called back to follow up and to offer the dash cam footage he had recorded, but was told it wouldn't be necessary because the child had already been found and was safely on the way home. Strangely, police later stated that no child was ever located, despite officers searching the area until 3:45 a.m. They also claimed they never told Mitch that the child had been found. The following morning, several volunteers organized a search of the area, but no child was discovered, and the search was eventually called off. At the time the footage was recorded, there were no reports of a missing child in the area. To this day, it remains unclear who or what was actually captured in the video. This footage was recorded late at night in a barren field in Saudi Arabia. Almost immediately, as the driver slowly moves forward, a white figure can be seen in the distance, appearing to hold a cane. As the video continues, the figure begins to limp closer toward the vehicle, and within moments the driver can be heard growing increasingly panicked. After some time, the figure keeps advancing, and the driver, now clearly terrified, starts shouting at it, yelling commands that roughly translate to telling it to back away and stay away from the car. Near the end of the clip, the figure emits a shrieking sound aimed at the driver. The video is undeniably unsettling, and to this day, it remains unclear what the driver actually captured on camera that night.
Reverse. Look there! Look at السيارة! Bueno.
This footage comes from a police cruiser's dash cam and shows 3 officers assisting the occupants of a vehicle that had broken down along the side of the road. As the video continues, the officers suddenly turn around, seemingly reacting to a noise behind them. Moments later, they frantically move out of the way as a car barrels toward them at an extremely high speed. The vehicle narrowly misses the officers before coming to a screeching stop farther down the road. The driver was later identified as a 26-year-old man named Cedric Keith Henson Jr., who was found to be intoxicated. Although the parked vehicles sustained significant damage, no one was injured. This next footage unfolds on a dark, remote roadway and begins in a seemingly normal way. As the vehicle comes around a curve, an unusual figure dressed in a suit and carrying a briefcase and an umbrella suddenly appears in view. Moments later, a second man who looks exactly the same steps into sight. The figures then move off into the tall grass lining the road, where it becomes evident that there are several more individuals present, all identical in appearance. They appear startled by the car, as though its arrival was unexpected. Farther ahead on the road, another figure can be seen, this time holding a flare. What happened afterward, and what the driver actually witnessed that night, remains unknown, though many believe the driver may have unknowingly driven straight into the middle of a cult-like gathering or ritual. This dashcam footage captures an armed robbery involving a cab driver named Ralph Roletta. It was the very beginning of his shift and his first passenger of the day. While stopped at a traffic light, the passenger can be seen sitting slouched down in the back seat. Suddenly, the passenger sits upright and demands that Ralph hand over everything he has.
Give me everything you got, man. This is a robbery, man.
All right, hey.
Give me all your money, man.
Man, I don't have...
Give me everything you got. Give me it now.
All right.
I need it now.
All right.
I can make this the easy way, or we can make this the hard way, man.
Everything I got, man.
Keep your hand where I can see him.
I just started.
What else you got?
I just
Let me
started.
see your wallet. Let me see your...
I don't have anything in my
We
wallet.
can do this the hard way, or we can do this the easy way, man. Let me see your wallet, and let me see your phone. I need it all right now, if you don't want to die, man.
Okay.
Give it all to me now.
Okay.
What the passenger didn't realize was that a police cruiser was stopped at the same red light directly behind the cab. During the robbery, the traffic light for their lane turned green, and when the cab failed to move, the officer activated his lights and stepped out to investigate.
Don't
Give me
carry
your
it.
wallet and your phone. I need your wallet.
No, please don't give me my phone. I need that for my... There's a cop behind us. There's a cop behind us.
Get out.
Oh my God. Lifesaver. Oh my God.
It quickly became clear to the officer that a robbery was in progress, prompting him to order the passenger out of the vehicle. The suspect was immediately detained, later arrested, and charged with multiple offenses. This dash cam footage was recorded on the streets of Taiwan, and from the very beginning it's obvious that the video takes place during an intense storm. The winds are so powerful that debris is being tossed through the air, with some of it even striking the windshield. What the drivers didn't realize at the time was that a tornado was forming directly behind them and rapidly moving in their direction. The footage captures the exact moment the tornado passes straight through the area. It is strong enough to lift vehicles off the ground, which is clearly visible when a white van pulls onto the road and its wheels leave the pavement as it is dragged by the tornado. The van appears to vanish momentarily, only to later be seen much farther down the road, wedged between 2 trees once the tornado has passed. Even more alarming is a person on the right side of the road who is picked up and thrown by the tornado. Tragically, this woman sustained serious injuries and was rushed to the hospital. The storm continued to cause devastation, producing nearly 50 inches of rain that triggered multiple deadly landslides. This footage dates back to 2012 and was recorded near an airport in Moscow, Russia, which sits directly beside a major highway. On December 29th, a Dashcam captured the disturbing moment when an aircraft missed the runway and crash landed on the right side of the highway. The plane had mistakenly overshot the runway due to severe weather conditions, and after touching down, there was not enough distance for it to slow and stop safely. With no other option, the aircraft continued straight into the highway, sending plane seats and other debris flying toward passing vehicles, all of which is clearly visible in the footage. At the time of the crash, the aircraft was carrying only crew members, with no passengers on board. Tragically, 5 of the 8 crew members lost their lives. The driver, whose Dashcam recorded the incident, was able to escape without injury. This video was recorded in Russia and shows cam footage of a man driving along a long, isolated dirt road. Ahead of him, a car is parked in a way that deliberately blocks the road. 2 men holding baseball bats then begin approaching the driver, making it clear that the situation is a robbery and that the parked vehicle was intentionally used as a makeshift roadblock. The driver attempts to escape, but the men step into his path, doing everything they can to stop him.
Зачем?
Зачем?
Выходи в машине, я...
Ну-ка, ну-ка. Что такое?
камера сниму. Камера снимает.
Я тебе сказал, выходи машину.
Камера снимает, ты чё?
Выходи машину.
Тебе что надо-то? Ну-ка я выйду.
Могу. Вы чё?
Открой.
С ума сошли, что ли?
Это что такое?
Вы расскажите, что надо.
Выходи машину. Что делаешь?
Я за грибами поехал. За грибами поехал. Вы что делаете?
Ты что делаешь, эй?
Fortunately, the driver spots a brief opening and acts immediately, flooring the accelerator and managing to break free without being harmed. He drives around the roadblock and successfully gets away. It remains unknown whether the 2 men armed with baseball bats were ever apprehended. In this video, Dashcam footage from a truck captures the exact moment an ambush unfolds. The footage clearly shows several people positioned along the highway using an improvised roadblock made from tree branches to force passing vehicles to stop. Those involved were a group of illegal immigrants who were reportedly angry over the recent demolition of a makeshift camp they had been living in. Once the truck came to a halt, they climbed over the guardrail and began hurling sticks, rocks, and even chunks of concrete at the driver. Although the driver was able to push through the roadblock and escape, he later stated that he genuinely feared for his life during the attack. Unfortunately, he also suffered multiple injuries from objects that shattered through the windshield. Injuries serious enough to require medical treatment. In August of 2018, Justin Bilton and his 70-year-old father were camping in Glacier National Park in Montana. They had been inside the park for only about 3 hours when they were suddenly notified of an immediate evacuation. A forest fire, sparked by lightning the night before, had rapidly grown out of control. What they didn't know at the time was that by the moment the evacuation order reached them, the only road leading out of the park had already been overtaken by the fire. As they attempted to leave, they encountered a fallen tree blocking the road completely, trapping them inside the park with no clear escape. With no other option, they were forced to reverse back along the same dangerous route they had just traveled. When they finally made it back to their campsite, they abandoned their vehicle and began running desperately toward a nearby lake. By sheer luck, they discovered 2 park employees already there with a boat at the shoreline. Justin and his father were rescued and brought to safety, leaving behind everything they owned except for the terrifying footage that captured their ordeal.